thanks very much for being with us tonight. We begin with day 3 of the Braden Bushby trial at the Courthouse Hotel. The 22-year-old has already pleaded guilty to aggravated assault in connection with the death of 34-year-old Barbara Kentner, but he is still being tried for manslaughter. And today the defense cross-examined the pathologist who performed the autopsy on Kentner. Troy Charles has more.
On day 3 of the Braden Bushby trial, it was his lawyer's turn to cross-examine the Crown's key witness, Dr. Toby Rose. She's the forensic pathologist who performed the post-mortem on Barbara Kentner. She concluded that Kentner's immediate cause of death was a result of complications arising from the thrown trailer hitch injury, and a secondary cause was liver failure. Defense lawyer George Joseph argued that the liver failure was the main cause. Joseph pointed out that on January 5th of 2017, 3 weeks before the trailer hitch incident, during a medical consultation, a doctor noted that abdominal imaging of Kentner showed abnormal fluid buildup. Joseph noted that Dr. Rose had peritonitis, which is inflammation of the inner abdominal wall, as one of the immediate causes of Kentner's death, and that it could have been already present in Kentner before the incident. Later, Joseph asked Dr. Rose, due to the complicated nature of Kentner's cause of death, is it possible that a different forensic pathologist could come to a different conclusion regarding Kentner's cause of death? To that, Rose answered, yes, that is true. That wrapped up the cross-examination. Afterwards, Justice Pierce stated she will be hearing closing arguments Thursday from both the Crown and defense lawyers. Joseph did ask if the defense could hold off until Friday for their closing arguments, to which Pierce declined, saying that she'd like to keep the trial moving because the Courthouse Hotel could be needed for other cases. Troy Charles, TBT News.
As the massive OPP search for Alyssa Turnbull continues in Nipigon, investigators are also pursuing new leads provided by the public. On Friday, the OPP announced a $50,000 reward for anyone who provides valuable information to help solve her disappearance. Sergeant Mike Golding says the missing persons case is quite complex, and the police force is still left with many unanswered questions. Golding explains where the OPP is at and as far as the number of tips they've received.
You know, we're not in the habit of giving out exact numbers, obviously, but we have had numerous tips, and what we do is we assign those to detectives, and they're followed up. Every single one is followed up.
The 26-year-old Turnbull was last seen between March 23rd and 25th while she was living in Nipigon. More than 20 officers are currently involved in an intense search of Nipigon's sewage treatment facility, which is expected to take several more days. OPP are now saying that search was pre-scheduled and is not related to any tip from the public. The Friends of Chippewa Park Group is asking the city to kick in $300,000 for a $1.6 million climate-controlled structure to house the newly restored carousel. But the funding request has reignited a call to return Chippewa Park to the Fort William First Nation. Ryan Benazzo explains.
Members of council.
The ask from the Friends of Chippewa Park to council on Monday was simple. Pay $300,000 of the $1.6 million required for a climate-controlled structure to protect the historic C.W. Parker Carousel and formally endorse the group's funding bids submitted to upper levels of government for the rest of the money. The investment will likely save the city in the long run, according to Parks manager Corey Halverson.
We should see savings with respect to maintaining the asset.
All but one councillor voted for city staff to prepare a report on the matter, which will be debated next month. McKellar Ward councillor Brian Hamilton didn't offer up an explanation for his lone no vote during Monday's meeting, but he now says it's because he believes Chippewa Park, which was expropriated from the Fort William First Nation in 1905, should and ultimately will be returned.
I don't see Chippewa being part of the future Thunder Bay. I really see it returning to one day to Fort William First Nation, where in my mind it rightfully belongs.
That's something Fort William First Nation Chief Peter Collins has been lobbying for years. He appeared before the previous city council in 2017.
The 1,600 acres of land that was expropriated from the community, Chippewa was part of that.
The idea of returning the land wasn't addressed during Monday's meeting, but several councillors did ask if the carousel and its protective structure could be moved to another location.
That building has to be built at the site of Chippewa Park.
And Councillor Shelby Chung wanted to ensure that Fort William leadership will be consulted when administration prepares its report.
Do respect that it's the traditional territory of Fort William. And we will do everything when we do our work within administration to ensure the proper consultations are done.
We have to really start working together in a more harmonious way. And I do believe that this is the administration and council that is going to really push and see that across the finish line and actually bring about some really lasting and enduring, partnerships between the two nations.
Ryan Benazzo, TVT News.
Hydro One and the City of Thunder Bay continued their controversial tree cutting along Wall Street today. 30 trees are being removed and all but 6 have been topped as residents search for clear answers about the project. Hydro One began its topping of the trees between Edward Street and Leyland Avenue last Friday. The remaining work to remove the lower portions is being done by the city. Crews were on site today. City Forester Mike Dixon says they plan to return in the spring to grind down the stumps and replace the trees with compatible species that won't cause hydro tower issues in the future. Jessica Matysik has managed to save the tree in her front yard, at least for now. She sat against it for 8 hours on Saturday, while hydro crews worked around her. She's upset with the decision to remove the trees and says neither Hydro One nor the city notified residents.
It would have been so easy and so simple. There's so many different ways you could have done it, like drop something in a mailbox instead of just, blaming Hydro to have to do it, or, like knock on a door, because how many houses are there really? It's Thunder Bay neighborhoods.
Well, most people are unhappy, and it looks terrible. But this is hydro topping. What they do, they don't own the trees. They're City of Thunder Bay trees, and we're absolutely powerless to stop it. So it's better to work with them than to work against them. It makes for a smoother flow of operations.
Hydro One still has 6 trees they plan to top on Wall Street before the snowfall, as well as work on Ford Street along their easement between Victoria Avenue and William Street. Ontario's new COVID-19 color-coded system is raising some concerns, and there are also questions for the Ford government about financial support for struggling businesses. Colin DeMello reports.
The new color-coded system is definitely raising some concerns. Some say it gives businesses the certainty they're looking for. Others say it puts the province on the path to danger. Ontario's new COVID-19 color-coded system is raising some concerns.
I think this is hasty. I think it's short-sighted, and I think, unfortunately, it's going to lead us further back, and it's going to actually harm the business community and the rest of the community.
The Ford government introduced a new scale yesterday. 5 colors with increasing restrictions as regions move higher up. Green zones will have the current public health measures, while gray zones would have a full lockdown. But it's the red zones that are currently raising the most eyebrows. In order to trigger the toughest restrictions, a region would have to be on the brink. High positivity rates, repeated outbreaks, and hospitals on the verge of being overwhelmed. It would mean restaurants, banquet halls, gyms, and casinos would be hit with new capacity limits, but they would not be closed, leading to concerns.
It creates the preconditions for rolling lockdowns, continued economic uncertainty, and unnecessary deaths and illness. Did medical experts at the Premier's command table raise any of these same concerns? And if so, why did the Premier ignore them?
There's a gradation of step-ups and step-downs within this framework that allows for businesses to understand if there are concerns with what's happening in their area, that there can be some restrictions placed on it, but not closures. So this is something that has been formulated with public health, by public health, for the benefit of all the people of Ontario.
The government is also facing questions about its financial support for struggling businesses. The finance minister says $300 million in support is about to be unlocked.
Beginning November 16th, businesses will be able to apply online for property tax and energy cost rebates. Reimbursements for these costs will start to arrive this month.
But critics say the government is delivering the cash infusion too late.
The Ford government didn't make the investments that they should have made to prepare for the second wave. They simply didn't.
Of course, there is more to be done for these small businesses, and that's why I look forward to outlining this government's plan tomorrow as we table the 2020 budget.
The government will deliver a budget tomorrow, which could include more support for businesses. In the meantime, MPPs who are part of Premier Doug Ford's own government, who had raised concerns about a lack of criteria in the past, now tell me that business owners and municipal leaders are pretty pleased with this new color-coded system, saying it gives them the clear benchmarks they had been looking for the past few months. At Queen's Park, Colin DeMello, CTV News.
Meanwhile, Premier Ford says his government is investing nearly $1 billion over 6 years to improve broadband internet and cellular access across the province, and much of that investment is earmarked for Northern Ontario.
Before the crisis, I made it my personal mission as Premier to improve broadband and connect these communities, and to make sure no part of Ontario was left behind in the 21st century. That's why today I'm very proud to announce our government is making a historic investment of nearly $1 billion to build better broadband across the province.
And officials with the Ford government say provincial staff are helping resolve the water crisis in Nescantaga, even though it's a federal responsibility. Environment Minister Jeff Urich says Ontario clean water technicians are in the community this week. The update came in response to a question by Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakwa at Queen's Park.
Nescantaga has been without safe tap water since February 1995, over a quarter of a century. We need gold standard on this. Why is this government? Why is Ontario ignoring and not helping Nescantaga through this crisis?
2 days ago, a team from the Ontario Clean Water Agency flew into the community after receiving an invitation from the chief. They have started the commission of the water plant and assessment of the water system infrastructure. They will conduct a 14-day stress test for the plant and provide high-level recommendations for longer-term system sustainability focused on removing the boil water advisory that has been in place, as the member opposite mentioned, since the 90s. We remain committed to helping ensure water infrastructure in the community is well maintained and in place for future needs. Mr. Speaker, I'm with the member opposite. I call upon the federal government to step up and take care of the promise to remove boil water advisories across the entire First Nation communities. Step up with the money and make this happen, Mr. Speaker.
The strong shipping season at the Port of Thunder Bay could soon add up to the highest annual totals in over 2 decades. A greater demand for canola from Europe is driving much of the vessel traffic here, and the port is on pace to reach a significant milestone by season's end. Corey Nordstrom reports.
There's been a dramatic increase in ocean-going ships at the local port. So far this year, they've carried more than 2 million metric tons of grain, representing a 54% increase for shipments by Salties over the same time period from last year.
The Salties now, we're thinking by the end of the year we'll have 150 through the port, which is probably the second highest we've seen in history, really, through Thunder Bay.
Heaney says exports of potash and coal are down, so an 11% increase in overall grain shipments is critical to their high profile on the Seaway. He adds they're ahead of last year's cargo total every month for grain, and the up year for wheat and canola is in part because of embargoes set up by China.
They're kind of curtailing imports from Canada, so that set up other markets in Europe. And so there's always a chain reaction. Some of this is due to the carryover of grain from last year with the rail embargoes that went on in the fall.
The strong year across the board also has Thunder Bay's port regaining some prominence, as they could hit 10 million metric tons of total cargo for the first time since 1998. Heaney says they should do it, as the positive numbers are slated to continue until the end of the shipping season in early January.
Forecasting there's a possibility of hitting the 10 million ton mark through Thunder Bay this year, and that'd be the first time in a couple decades that's happened. So it puts us back as the largest Canadian port on the Great Lakes, a title we used to have, and we're regaining again.
Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The Boys and Girls Club on Windsor Street is unveiling a new space specifically for teens. It's designed to provide a place of leisure and deliver the Raise the Grade program. The new space comes fit with items like pool and air hockey tables, as well as 10 new computers they can use for homework or to work on resumes. The Teen Tech Center is a result of $88,000 in funding through RBC's Future Launch program. Kristen Anderson is a high school teacher and the program's coordinator. She says it offers tools like financial literacy and exam prep that really aren't available for many centers designed for younger children.
Older teens sort of need that opportunity to engage in places within their community and their environment that offer programming and support that is unique to their needs. We really work to sort of develop their social skills, their physical education. We have a gym here. Students are able to work out.
The space will be available for any teen in the city every Tuesday and Thursday from 6 to 8 in the evening.
Well, Fiona, you'll be happy to know that for this week, for a limited time, I'm back to wearing loafers to work with socks.
We are thrilled.
It's beautiful outside.